Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's beautiful out. It's 81 degrees. It feels comfortable. It'd be nice to be on a motorcycle today, although the roads are kind of jammed up. The Thomas Jefferson says our humidity is at 43% and the wind is at 3 miles an hour. And I do feel a very slight breeze. It's open here. I'm not walking surrounded by trees. I spent the day messing around with my cases a little bit, but one of the things that I noticed in the short amount of time I turned on the sound of the talking heads, all I could think of was how dumb is the public debate. And this sample is perhaps not fair, but it happens often enough. There are other examples of it. So I sort of think is how dumb is the public debate? How high is the sky? There was a question among the talking heads. Get this. Will Leo the 14th take on AI, artificial intelligence? Really? Is that what you think he does? Not helping the poor and misplaced, the hungry and the homeless and the refugees. And he's not focused on the hate and the war, nor migrants. And you think that if you were to dial him up, you would tell him that he should pay attention to artificial intelligence. Not even close. Our public debate is anorexic, although the indications of trouble are many and obvious when they're covered, and should encourage us to push and fight back. Now, just the other day, the mayor of Newark, Baraka, and 3 representatives from Congress went to check on a new ICE facility and run by GEO, a private prison company, and they went there because this facility cannot open without permits, and the mayor and the members of Congress went there to inspect it. They were harassed the entire time, threatened with arrest, and interestingly, when the mayor had left the building and was outside on public grounds, they arrested him. And they've since said that the 3 members of Congress that were present with him may stand prosecuted for crimes. Is that something? This kind of brown shirt stuff is exactly what some of us have been saying since 2016. And these developments and this liturgy of dictatorship wishes and desires and success takes time, and they keep moving around, and occasionally now we see a member of Congress pop up and say, well, we better do something about it, and everybody looks, oh, don't you even think about doing anything about it. So, for example, ICE is moving migrants to Texas because the judge there won't pause the deportment, the removal of the migrants. So they're judge shopping. They're choosing venues. Isn't that something? The administration, on its way to monarchy, is getting pushback from the courts. And so now they're going to attack the courts. They're going to attack Congress people. They're going to attack others. And the hint of force is no longer in the air. It's happening. When you're putting a mayor in jail, a mayor who's running for the governor to be governor of the state, then you're making very strong statements. In these cases, because the public relies on these people, is supposed to require exactly the kind of evidence that we had when Trump was prosecuted. Solid evidence, stuff that had been seen in the public and so forth. But they now have lawyers, some of whom are the same lawyers who made those fraudulent cases back in 2020 about the election, that they was robbed when no judge found any of the very many cases they had to have merit. And now they're doing the same thing, except they're concentrating on making the public statement without the evidence and without the force of process, without the recognition of the law, without paying attention to, fundamental fairness. And as that's not enough to stop us, to stop the courts, to stop the people from suing for the false and terrible things that they're doing, they're upping the ante. They're going to put you all in jail. It's no longer a joke that you may be on a cot in a camp, who knows where, Iowa. Because if you say too much, too soon, that contradicts their program at a time when they're having trouble getting their program to work, you're in the way. So they have a full-out attack on the courts. And what could the courts do about it? Well, I think it's beginning to be time when they should be taking out sanctions against the attorneys. They can control that. Tighten the sphincter muscles of the enemy legitimately so that it stands up to public scrutiny. When somebody comes into court, you've asked them to do something, they don't do it, hold them in contempt. If you find that they're violating the law and lying to a court, go to the state bar. Don't talk to the feds. Go to the state bar and take action against them. Because this is a war for freedom. This is a war for what's right. This is a war against evil. The irony of the Pope being from Illinois is it sets up an immediate consequential conflict of values without the Pope saying anything more than he's ever said or done in his life. In fact, he spent such a large amount of his life outside of the United States and serving the people in Peru that he has a special kind of identity. He strides across cultures and politics without being political. And he has a message to give, not that I agree with all of it, but some of it is right for our time. I look at him as a secular leader, while others may see him as sectarian, see him in all sorts of mythical and religious ways. But I see him as a man with 1 billion people paying attention to what he has to say. And so far, he's saying the right things. So that's why we have some dummy ask somebody else, you think he's going to do anything about artificial intelligence? I think it shows that the speaker didn't even know what artificial intelligence is to begin with, which is another problem. And I don't see an easy cure, because we want dumber people covering the news. We want lazy people covering the news. We want them to rip stories off machines and just read them. And the stories will come from the White House. Increasingly, they'll come from the White House or some intimidated corporate entity that is responsible in the subcategories of its existence for news coverage, print, online, media, any kind of media. So why don't we do that? Well, we can ask so much of the courts, and some have to be considering this, and some are at the center of this fight, and so we have to help them in every way we can. There was a Turkish woman with Turkish citizenship studying at Tufts, and she wrote an article with someone else. She didn't exhort revolution. She didn't commit any acts except to say what she thought about how Gaza was being handled. And she was arrested in Boston, driven to Vermont, and flown to Louisiana, where they think the government, this government, thinks they have better control over the judges to get what they want. So a judge caused her to be released because exercising your First Amendment right, I'm sorry, it's not a crime. And then because of her medical condition, she has suffered asthma attacks, which can be pretty severe. And what does she do? What is she studying? She's studying child and human development. That's her offense against the world. That's what she's chosen. We've had the president praise the head of Turkey, and yet they go and they seize one. Why? Just because she disagrees with them. That's it. That's enough. Off with your head. It's amazing. Now, what else is going on? The conflict, by the way, I think is encouraging, because fighting is better than doing nothing. And fighting and achieving some results is good. And repeatedly getting decisions that some Republicans call, oh, it's a judge out of control. The judge out of control is a judge that looks at what an administration is doing and looks at the Constitution and finds what the administration is doing. It's not just wanting, it's dead wrong. It's not supported, and the judges are saying that. So, what about the rest of the agenda? Well, we're trying to get together a budget and stuff like that. And the Republicans have been talking about reducing Medicaid for some time, and so has Trump. But they're antsy about doing that because, and you may know this, 1 out of 5 persons in America is using Medicaid. That's right, 1 out of 5. And that's a very dangerous group to go against. And the Speaker has said of the 2 proposals they have on the table that he won't reduce payments and he won't overhaul the operation of Medicaid. Now, you can't believe anything these guys say, so I have to wait and see what happens about it, but that's what they're saying right now. In another category of the false deportment of people in the administration and the people who support them, the maggots that are out there doing what they do, there are people sending pizzas to judges. Now, that may sound like nothing, but as a kid in New York and a former federal prosecutor from New York who did mob cases, one of the old statements that they would make is, he sleeps with the fishes, which is a way of saying that this is going to happen, and a fish might end up on the desk of someone on top of a current issue of, it used to be the Daily News, and this would be a sign your time is coming. Well, so what is the pizza doing? Well, it's removed enough from what the mob did to say, we know where you live, we know who you are, we don't like what you're saying in court, you know that we don't like what you're saying in court, so be careful. We wouldn't want you to trip and fall or some member of your family to be hurt. All right? Then let's talk about the tariffs. We are fed more bullshit and lies in a day than, I don't know, Pinocchio could have contemplated if if a puppet could contemplate anything. I know we were told that he could, and that he became a boy. I don't know, bizarre things. Have any of us ever analyzed what the hell that meant? So we were a puppet, but we didn't have values and become a person until we'd done certain things. And so this was an aspiration for us, if we could figure it out, so that we didn't turn up as chips of wood on a floor somewhere. Well, anyhow, what are we talking about in terms of tariffs? Nothing about Pinocchios, but what we are talking about is, for example, children. What they're not going to get in the near days if something doesn't happen. And we're not talking about dolls, although I suppose that's part of the mix. We're talking about, carriages for babies and more. And China is the supplier of these things, and they're not in the game. So it's going to, and what they're going to do, and what they are doing, is China is going to other markets, transshipping to them, and then they're selling it to us and others. So the brilliant cast of characters we have here never plan ahead. They can't do chess. They can't do checkers. They can't do good. They can't plan because they only have one plan, which is destroy what we all know. And it's up to us to keep the game honest by pushing back. Here in Virginia, I'll give you an example of the weakness in the Democratic Party. We have a candidate for governor. Okay, she's a Democrat. Virginia also has what they call them right to work laws. They're really right to work for less laws, because what they provide is that you can't organize, you can't unionize, you can't charge dues, you can't have a union shop, these kinds of things. In other words, the plantation economy exists. And there have been efforts over time to change all of that. And you would think a Democrat would stand up and be counted. But instead, she's reassured everybody that she's not for the repeal of the right to work misnomer statute in Virginia. And she doesn't contemplate any reforms. Well, I'm not spending a dime, I'm not spending a minute on her campaign. Why should I? We have enough of these jerks. If this is who she is, and this is what she wants to do, she probably shouldn't be in office. She give Democrats a bad name. So, those are a couple of thoughts I have. So I say goodbye to you on a non-rainy day from the Cathedral of Trees. And look, there's the Pope. He's got a sign. He's talking about artificial intelligence, which you could define most of the people who talked on heads all day today as artificial intelligence. Bye-bye.